147%. That's how much higher your blood sugar goes after breakfast when you drink your coffee the wrong way. Same meal, same plate, same portion. The only difference was the coffee. And here's what nobody tells you. Coffee contains two compounds that do the exact opposite thing to your blood sugar. One of them lowers it, the other one raises it. They're both in the same cup. And the one that wins depends entirely on 5 decisions you make before your first sip. If you get those 5 decisions wrong, and I gotta tell you, most people with diabetes get at least 3 of them wrong every single morning. You are spiking your blood sugar to levels your pancreas cannot recover from before lunch even starts. And you're doing it with a drink you believe is harmless. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what those 5 decisions are. Rank them from the least harmful mistake to the one that does the most damage. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to drink your coffee so it works with your blood sugar, not against it. And decision number 1, honestly, when I explain the science behind it, you're going to want to pour your morning cup down the sink and start over. If you're new here, this channel exists for one reason: to give seniors the complete truth about how food affects blood sugar, backed by real research, explained in a way that actually makes sense. Subscribe if that's what you've been looking for. It costs nothing, and it's the only way YouTube shows you what I publish next. Before I get into the 5 decisions, you need to understand something about coffee that almost no doctor takes the time to explain. Because without this, none of the practical advice makes sense. Coffee is not one thing. It's a cocktail. There are over 1,000 bioactive compounds in a single cup. But 2 of them matter more than anything else when it comes to your blood sugar. The first one is caffeine. You know caffeine. Everybody knows caffeine. It wakes you up. But here's what it's doing inside a diabetic body that most people never hear about. Caffeine triggers your adrenal glands to release cortisol and epinephrine. Those are stress hormones. And when those stress hormones hit your liver does something it was designed to do in emergencies. It dumps stored glucose straight into your bloodstream. Think of your liver like a savings account full of sugar. Cortisol is the withdrawal slip. And caffeine is the person walking into the bank and handing over that slip every single morning. Researchers at Duke University measured this directly in people with type 2 diabetes. Published in Diabetes Care, 2008, they found that on days when patients consumed caffeine, their average daytime blood sugar was measurably higher, and their after-meal glucose spikes were significantly worse compared to the same patients on days they didn't consume caffeine. Same people, same meals, same medications. The only variable was the coffee. Now, here's where it gets confusing, because there's a second compound in that same cup. It's called chlorogenic acid, and chlorogenic acid does something remarkable. It actually slows the rate at which glucose is absorbed from your intestines into your bloodstream. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2003 confirmed this directly. Chlorogenic acid modifies how your gut processes sugar. It puts a speed limit on glucose entry. So you've got caffeine, telling your liver to release more sugar, and chlorogenic acid, telling your gut to absorb less sugar. Both of them, same cup, fighting each other. And which one wins depends on how you drink it. That's the coffee paradox. And that's why some studies say coffee is protective against diabetes, while others say it raises blood sugar. They're both right. It depends on the dose, the timing, the preparation, and what else is in your stomach when you drink it. And that brings me to the 5 decisions. Because once you understand the paradox, you'll see exactly why each one matters. Actually, let me tell you about Miriam first, because her story is the reason I started paying such close attention to this. Miriam, 71 years old, retired school teacher from outside Milwaukee. She'd been managing type 2 diabetes for 11 years, and she was one of the most disciplined patients I'd ever worked with. She tracked every meal, She walked 4 days a week. She took her metformin at the same time every morning, without missing a dose. But her fasting blood sugar would not come below 160. And her after-breakfast readings were consistently over 200. Her A1C had been sitting at 8.1 for 2 straight years. And she was frustrated in the way that only someone who's doing everything right and still losing can be frustrated. She sat across from me and said something I still remember. She said, "Doctor, I feel like my body is punishing me for something I can't figure out." I asked her to walk me through her morning routine, and she described it like this. Wake up at 6:30. Take metformin with a glass of water. Then, brew a pot of coffee. Strong. 3 cups before breakfast. Sometimes 4. Black. No sugar. She was proud of the no sugar part. She'd given up cream 2 years ago because she thought it was the right thing to do. Then around 7:30, she'd eat 2 scrambled eggs with vegetables. A good breakfast. Solid protein. On paper, everything looked right. Metformin, black coffee, protein-forward breakfast. No sugar, no cream. But her blood sugar after breakfast was hitting 220 every single morning. And I knew exactly why. Because Miriam was making 3 of the 5 mistakes I'm about to show you. And the biggest one had nothing to do with food. I'll come back to Miriam, but first, let me walk you through each decision, starting with the one most people think doesn't matter. Decision number 5. How you brew it. Most people don't think the brewing method matters for blood sugar. And for the glucose response specifically, the difference is small. But there's a secondary effect that matters a lot if you have diabetes and you're also watching your cholesterol. Which, if you're over 70, you probably are. Coffee beans contain 2 oily compounds called cafestol and caweol. These are diterpenes, and they raise your LDL cholesterol, the kind you don't want going up, through a specific liver mechanism. They reduce the activity of LDL receptors in your liver, which means less cholesterol gets cleared from your blood. Now here's what matters. A paper filter catches almost all of those compounds. That thin little paper filter sitting in your drip coffee machine, it's doing something your doctor would approve of. But a French press? No filter. Turkish coffee? No filter. Espresso? Tiny partial filter that lets most of the oils through. Those methods let the cholesterol-raising compounds pass directly into your cup. A study out of Norway, the Tromsø study, published in the journal Open Heart in 2022, found that unfiltered coffee consumption was linked to measurably higher total cholesterol compared to filtered coffee. And this wasn't a small sample, over 21,000 participants. The fix is simple. If you use a French press or espresso machine at home, switch to a drip coffee maker with a paper filter. Or pour your French press coffee through a paper filter before you drink it. Takes 10 seconds. Costs almost nothing. You keep the flavor. You keep the chlorogenic acid. You lose the cholesterol-raising oils. And look, if you only drink 1 espresso a day, this probably isn't your biggest problem. But if you're drinking 3 or 4 cups from a French press every morning, that's where the numbers start to shift. Now, decision 4 is where things start getting more personal. Because this one has to do with what you're putting into the coffee. Decision number 4. What you add to your coffee. And I gotta be straight with you about this, because some of you are drinking what you think is coffee, but is actually a dessert with caffeine in it. A plain cup of black coffee has 0 grams of sugar and essentially 0 effect on blood sugar by itself. But the moment you add a flavored creamer, one of those French vanilla or hazelnut creamers that's in every refrigerator in America, you're adding, on average, 5 grams of sugar per tablespoon. Most people use 2 to 3 tablespoons per cup. That's 10 to 15 grams of liquid sugar entering your bloodstream with 0 fiber to slow it down. 3 cups a day with flavored creamer, that's 30 to 45 grams of hidden sugar before you've eaten a single piece of food. That's more sugar than a can of cola. And it's invisible. because it doesn't feel like sugar. It feels like coffee. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I use Splenda, or I use stevia, or I use sugar-free creamer. And those are better, genuinely better. The artificial sweeteners aren't going to spike your blood sugar the way table sugar does. But the sugar-free creamers still contain other things: hydrogenated oils, corn syrup solids, sodium caseinate, that aren't doing your metabolic health any favors over the long term. If you need something in your coffee, a small splash of half and half or heavy cream is actually a better option for blood sugar than most commercial creamers. The fat in real cream slows absorption. The chemical ingredients in powdered creamers don't. The ideal? Black coffee through a paper filter. I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but if you can train yourself to drink it black, or with just a splash of real cream, you've eliminated one of the most common hidden sugar sources in the senior diet. By the way, if you're wondering what else might be silently raising your blood sugar while you sleep, I put together a guide called The Midnight Insulin Trap. Link is in the description below. Okay, back to coffee. Real quick, I want to know something. How many cups of coffee do you drink in the morning? Drop that number in the comments. 1 cup? 2? 3? More? I read every single one, and honestly, the answers might surprise you as much as they surprise me. Decision number 3. How much you drink. This is the dose cliff. And this is where most people with diabetes are making their biggest mistake without knowing it. Here's what the research shows, and I want you to hear this clearly because it sounds contradictory until you understand the mechanism. Moderate coffee consumption, 1 to 3 cups per day, is consistently associated with lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. A massive meta-analysis published in Diabetes Care in 2014 analyzed 28 studies, over 1 million participants, and found that each additional cup of coffee per day was associated with roughly an 8 to 9% reduction in diabetes risk. That's the long-term data, and it's strong. The chlorogenic acid, the magnesium, the polyphenols in coffee. Over months and years, they appear to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. But, and this but is critical. In people who already have type 2 diabetes, the acute effect of caffeine on blood sugar is the opposite. Researchers at Duke University, and this has been replicated multiple times, found that caffeine acutely impairs glucose metabolism in people with established diabetes. It raises after-meal blood sugar, it reduces insulin sensitivity, and the effect gets worse as the dose goes up. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2008 measured this precisely. When participants consumed caffeinated coffee before a meal, their glucose response was up to 147% higher compared to the same meal with decaffeinated coffee. 147% from the same meal. So, coffee prevents diabetes in people who don't have it, but makes blood sugar worse in people who do have it. That sounds like a contradiction, but it's not, because the long-term protective effects come from the chlorogenic acid and the polyphenols, and the short-term damaging effects come from the caffeine. They're different compounds doing different things on different timescales. And here's the dose cliff, the threshold where caffeine overwhelms chlorogenic acid. For most people with type 2 diabetes, that threshold sits somewhere around 2 cups of regular-strength drip coffee per day, around 160 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. Below that line, the beneficial compounds in coffee can still do their work without the caffeine causing major disruption. Above that line, caffeine dominates. Your liver starts dumping glucose. Your insulin sensitivity drops. Your after-meal spikes get worse. 2 cups. That's the number I tell every patient. Not 3, not 4, 2. And what you do with those 2 cups matters just as much as the number. Which brings me to decision 2. Now, this next one, I gotta tell you, This is the one that changed Miriam's numbers. And it's the one I see people get wrong more than anything else. Decision number 2. When you drink it. And this has to do with something that's happening inside your body every single morning before you even open your eyes. Between roughly 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., your body goes through what's called the dawn phenomenon. Your adrenal glands release cortisol. Your liver releases growth hormone. Your nervous system shifts from sleep mode into wake mode. And as part of that process, your liver starts releasing stored glucose into your bloodstream. This is your body's natural alarm clock. It's designed to give your brain fuel to wake up. In someone without diabetes, the pancreas responds by releasing a little extra insulin, and everything stays balanced. You never notice it. In someone with type 2 diabetes, insulin response is sluggish. Insulin sensitivity is low, especially in the morning. So that liver glucose dump just sits there, circulating, pushing your fasting number higher. That's why your morning blood sugar is often your highest reading of the day, even though you haven't eaten anything. Now, into that already elevated hormonal environment, you pour caffeine. Caffeine stimulates more cortisol release. On top of the cortisol your body already produced to wake you up. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire that was already burning. And if you drink that coffee on an empty stomach, before eating anything, there is nothing in your digestive system to buffer the effect. No protein slowing things down. No fiber creating a barrier. No fat moderating absorption. Just caffeine hitting your bloodstream as fast as it possibly can. The cortisol spike happens within 15 to 20 minutes of your first sip. Your liver responds almost immediately. Glucose goes up. And then you eat breakfast. And the glucose from that meal stacks on top of the glucose your liver already released. That stacking effect is what pushes after breakfast readings from 160 to 220. Not the food alone. The food plus the coffee-triggered liver dump happening simultaneously. The fix is simple, and it's free. Eat first, coffee second. Eat your protein. Eat your vegetables. Give your body 10 to 15 minutes to start processing that food. Then drink your coffee. The protein and fat from your breakfast create a buffer in your stomach. They slow gastric emptying. They moderate the cortisol response. And the caffeine effect, while still present, is blunted significantly. I know that sounds hard. Some of you are thinking, "Doctor, I can't function without my coffee first." I hear you. And I'm not saying you have to wait an hour. I'm saying eat something, even a hard-boiled egg, even a handful of walnuts, before that first sip. Give your body something to work with before the caffeine arrives. This was Miriam's biggest mistake. 3 cups of strong black coffee before breakfast. Every morning. For years. She was triggering a massive cortisol response on top of her dawn phenomenon. On an empty stomach. With no food buffer. And then eating her eggs an hour later. By the time the protein from those eggs started working, her blood sugar was already at 190 from the coffee alone. I asked her to make one change. Eat her eggs first, wait 15 minutes, then drink her coffee. And I asked her to limit it to 2 cups instead of 3. 2 weeks later, her after-breakfast readings dropped from 220 to 158. No medication change, no diet overhaul, no exercise increase, just eating before coffee and dropping 1 cup. She called me and said, "Dr. Javier, are you telling me I tortured myself for 2 years because I drank my coffee in the wrong order?" And the honest answer was, partly, yes. And this connects to something important, because what Miriam didn't realize is that this cortisol pattern doesn't just affect her mornings. It affects what her liver does between 2 and 4 a.m. the next night. If you've been struggling with morning blood sugar numbers that won't come down no matter what you do, the midnight insulin trap explains exactly what's happening during those nighttime hours and what to do about it. Links in the description. Decision number 1. And this is the one that changes everything. Whether you drink caffeinated or decaffeinated coffee. Now, I know some of you just rolled your eyes. Stay with me here. Because this isn't about giving up coffee. It's about understanding that decaf coffee gives you almost every benefit of regular coffee, without the glucose-raising effect of caffeine. Remember the paradox I explained at the beginning? Chlorogenic acid, the compound that slows glucose absorption and improves long-term insulin sensitivity, is present in both caffeinated and decaffeinated coffee. The Ding meta-analysis I mentioned earlier, it found that decaf coffee was also associated with reduced diabetes risk. Not as strong as caffeinated, but still statistically significant. So decaf gives you the chlorogenic acid, it gives you the polyphenols, it gives you the magnesium, it gives you the ritual, the warmth, the taste. What it doesn't give you is the cortisol spike, the liver glucose dump, the insulin sensitivity impairment, the after-meal blood sugar surge. The practical protocol that I recommend to every patient with type 2 diabetes is this. And I want you to hear this as a system, not a restriction. Your first cup of the day, make it decaf. Drink it while you eat breakfast or right after. This gives your body the chlorogenic acid benefit during the most metabolically vulnerable window of the day, without triggering the cortisol cascade. Your second cup, if you want caffeine, this is where you have it. Mid-morning, between 9 and 11 a.m., after breakfast has been fully digested. After the dawn phenomenon, cortisol has cleared. After your metformin has had time to start working. 1 cup of regular coffee in that window. The caffeine effect is significantly less disruptive than it would have been on an empty stomach at 6:30. That's it. Decaf first with breakfast. Caffeinated second, mid-morning. 2 cups total. Through a paper filter, with nothing added or a small splash of real cream if you need it. And I gotta tell you, when I explain this to patients, most of them look at me like I just solved a puzzle they've been staring at for years. Because they've been told coffee is fine, or coffee is bad. But nobody told them it depends on which coffee, when, and how much. Now, before I give you the action plan, I need to warn you about 3 combinations that are actively dangerous. And one of them, I see it every single day. Combination 1. Coffee plus a high-carbohydrate breakfast. I'm talking about coffee with oatmeal and orange juice. Coffee with toast and jam. Coffee with a muffin or cereal. This combination takes the glucose spike from the carbohydrates and the caffeine-triggered liver dump and stacks them simultaneously. That study I cited earlier found that caffeinated coffee before a high glycemic meal increased the glucose response by 147%. If you're going to drink caffeinated coffee, the meal alongside it must be protein-forward. Eggs, not cereal. Vegetables, not toast. Combination 2. Coffee plus skipping breakfast entirely. Some people drink 2 or 3 cups of coffee in the morning and don't eat until lunch. For someone with diabetes, this is one of the worst patterns possible. You're getting all of the caffeine-triggered cortisol with none of the food buffer. Your blood sugar rises from the liver dump. Then there's nothing to metabolize. And your body stays in that elevated stressed state for hours. Combination 3. And this is the one most people miss. Coffee within 30 minutes of taking metformin. Now, I'm not saying coffee cancels your metformin. That's not what the research shows. But caffeine works against metformin's primary mechanism. Metformin suppresses liver glucose output. Caffeine stimulates liver glucose output. When you take them at the same time on an empty stomach, they're pushing in opposite directions. Metformin is trying to keep the glucose locked in your liver. Caffeine is trying to pull it out. The solution is simple. Take your metformin, eat your breakfast, wait 15 minutes, then drink your coffee. Give the metformin time to start working before the caffeine arrives. That's not a medical claim, that's just common sense about sequencing. And as always, talk to your doctor about the specific timing of your medications. What I'm sharing is general guidance based on the research, not a replacement for your physician's advice. All right, here's your protocol. Starting tomorrow morning. Step 1. Wake up. Take your medication with a glass of water. No coffee yet. Step 2. Within 30 to 45 minutes of waking up, eat a protein-forward breakfast. 2 eggs with vegetables, or Greek yogurt with nuts, or whatever protein-first meal works for your situation. Step 3. While you eat, or right after, drink your first cup of coffee. Make it decaf, through a paper filter, black or with a small splash of real cream. No flavored creamers, no sugar. Step 4. Between 9 and 11 a.m. If you want it, drink your second cup. This one can be regular caffeinated. Same rules. Paper filter, no sugar, no flavored creamers. Step 5. That's it. 2 cups. Done for the day. Nothing after noon. Because caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 10 hours depending on your metabolism, and afternoon coffee disrupts sleep, which raises tomorrow morning's cortisol, which raises tomorrow morning's fasting blood sugar. The cycle feeds itself. 5 steps. Nothing expensive, nothing complicated, nothing you need a prescription for. And for those of you watching from outside the US, decaf coffee is widely available. Most grocery stores carry it. Most major brands make a decaf version that tastes nearly identical to the regular. You're not giving up coffee. You're moving 1 cup from regular to decaf. That's the whole change. And if you're living with type 1, I see you. The caffeine-cortisol mechanism works the same way in type 1 diabetes. The timing strategy, eating before coffee, applies to you too. But the dosing is different because your insulin regimen is different. Talk to your endocrinologist about adjusting your morning bolus if you make this change. I want to close with what happened to a gentleman I'll call Douglas, 68, retired electrician, coffee lover, 4 cups a day, all caffeinated, all before breakfast, all through a French press. His fasting blood sugar had been between 165 and 180 for years. He made 3 changes. Switched to a drip machine with paper filters, cut from 4 cups to 2, and started eating before his first cup. 6 weeks later, his fasting blood sugar averaged 138. His A1C dropped from 8.4 to 7.6. And his LDL cholesterol, which had been creeping up for 3 years, actually came down by 11 points. His primary care doctor said, "What did you change?" And Douglas told him, "I changed how I drink my coffee." Same answer, every time. And look, everything I covered today is about what happens in the morning. But here's what most people don't realize. The damage doesn't stop when you put the cup down. Between 2 and 4 a.m., your liver enters a phase where it processes everything differently. And if your evening routine isn't set up correctly, everything you fixed in the morning gets undone while you sleep. That's exactly what the midnight insulin trap covers. The nighttime blood sugar pattern that nobody explains. What your liver does between midnight and dawn, and the simple protocol to stop it. It's the other half of what I taught you today. The link is in the description below. If this changed how you think about your morning routine, drop "I choose food over pills" in the comments. Because that's what this is, a food-based strategy. No medication changes, no supplements, just understanding the science of what's already in your kitchen. And if what you learned today about coffee concerns you, I made another video about the 7 worst breakfast foods for blood sugar that honestly, I almost didn't publish. Because the #1 food on that list? You probably ate it this morning, and you thought it was healthy. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your physician before making changes to your diet or medication, especially if you take insulin or other diabetes medications. Every person is different,